Well, this is why we have a facilitator help us.
Thank
We
you.
don't try to do it on our own. We sat down with Kim of Gringo for Gringo. She's a residency facilitator here in Puerto Vallarta, and she gave us some tips on what to expect in 2025.
She and her husband Dave helped us get our residency 2.5 years ago.
And today we're going to get the answers straight from the expert. And then stay to the end of the video so that you can learn about some mistakes to avoid, so it will make your process of getting your residency much easier. And here's Kim. Okay, so what makes you the experts in all of this? How long have you been doing this?
We started in March of 2020, so right as the pandemic hit.
Right.
But we had actually purchased this company from the previous owners, and we had gone through extensive training for about 4 months. And with the pandemic, it just kind of slowed us down even a little bit more.
Sure.
So we could learn our craft.
Mm-hmm.
And we were doing quite well until we lost our business partner in July of 2020 to COVID.
Oh, how unfortunate.
What we didn't know is he was working with a gal behind the scenes. So he sent her directly to us when he got sick.
Mm-hmm.
And when he passed, we asked her to join the team and work with us directly. She said she couldn't do that until she had the blessing of Javier's widow. And it ended up, she was able to come on board with us as well.
Okay,
so
good.
Now she makes a really great living for her family.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So if there's any bright light out of that, and we all work very well together as a team. We all have our special interests, and we just all make it work.
That is an interesting yet tragic start to their business here in Mexico.
Yeah, it certainly was. But, since then, they have certainly helped a lot of people get residency. And I'm sure a lot of people are very thankful that they stuck in there and made it work.
We certainly were.
Yes, we were. And we are. Next, we asked Kim to tell us what the residency process is all about. So why does one need to have residency? Why can't they just keep being a tourist?
You can live on a tourist visa for so long. So you come here, they give you generally 180 days. You must exit the country. Now you can turn right around and come back for another 180 days. People live like this for years.
Mm-hmm.
However, when the pandemic hit, people were stuck.
Stuck here or
Stuck here.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't get out. So now they were here illegally. So I like to use that as a reference only because when you have residency, you can stay as little or as long as you want without the fear of overstaying and being here illegally.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to live here, you should be a resident.
Yeah, I agree. And I know that at some point there was a time when we first came where people weren't getting 180 days.
No.
And they were getting 30 or 60. And people said, I'm here for this season and I've already rented my place for 6 months. And it was like, too bad for you.
Right. That happens. It could still happen. Yeah. I've seen trends over the years that it could happen again. So longer stays may not be given out.
Yeah, we never know.
You never know.
We never know.
And if you keep living like that, you could come back in because they're digital nationwide now. So it's not like you just show them your passport. They can see every time you come in and out. Mm-hmm. So eventually your luck is going to run out and they're going to say, I'm going to give you 7 days here.
Right.
Go get residency.
Kim, what does one need to do to get residency in Mexico for the year 2025?
There's several ways. Mostly the traditional way is going to be at a Mexican consulate in your home country to apply for your residency visa by proving your financial solvency. That's the first step. The second step is here in Mexico where we finalize that residency.
Okay, so what does that mean? You go to your consulate outside of Mexico first. How do you do that?
The rule of thumb is that it must start outside of Mexico. So the most convenient way is to start in your own home country. There are Mexican consulates throughout the country, and generally you should probably try and go to the closest one to your house, but we can suggest other consulates that take on a more broad basis where you're from.
So you can help with that process before they come to Mexico?
Yeah, our guidance starts way before you get to Mexico.
Oh, that's great.
We can help you select a consulate. We can email you the link. We can go over the requirements together and then get you confident enough to go into that interview.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Because every consulate has the same rules basically, but they may interpret them differently. That's why you're going to find a little bit different from consulate to consulate on
Mhm.
what they require. So they could require the documents in different ways, they could calculate the requirements in different ways. So the best source to get those permanent answers is to get them directly from them. We can talk about general references and how to go about getting the documents they need, but if they have a specialized situation, they should talk to that consulate directly.
Do they have to speak Spanish to do that?
They do not. Most consulates have English speaking
Oh,
agents
that's a
to help
relief.
you do this. They're not going to help you gather anything. They're not going to take extra copies when you get there. So you have to show up prepared.
I was surprised to hear all about that Kim offered their services before you get to Mexico.
Yeah, that's really new to me.
Yeah, because remember, we did it all on our own. In fact, I got on I got on the internets and I figured out that I needed to contact some consulates. So because we were in San Diego at the time, I was able to contact the consulate in San Diego, and they said, "Nope, you can't do it here because
Right.
you no longer live in San
California
Diego."
residents.
Right. So then I thought, we have family in San Antonio. If it's going to take a while, let's go there and try that. So I emailed the consulate in San Antonio, got the information right away, lots of things that I needed to do,
A lot of
and
documents.
a lot of documents. But good thing we were in San Diego because they needed to have bank statements for, we'll tell you more about that, what it entails, but bank statements at our bank is Navy Federal, and there's a big branch right there in San Diego. So we went there, and then you were able to find.
Yeah, so I went online because we needed to have our documents for all of our investments, our 401. So I was able to download those, thank goodness. And that was pretty easy.
Yes, and we got it all taken care of, and I emailed it all back to the consulate in San Antonio. And guess what? They only had appointments for once a month. And by this time, we had gone to San Antonio, and then we had to wait another month because we missed that day. But we got the appointment, and here we are. So, next, Kim is going to share her ideas about what the consulates require. And what kind of things do they generally require?
They're going to require a current passport, your finances. So there's two different ways. So you can qualify by the income that you make, and they're going to require 6 months of bank statements. Some consulates require a letter from your employer about how long you've been there and how much you're making, and then bank statements to corroborate that. So, and the bank statements is what's been getting everybody lately because they want you to have a letter from your financial institution stating that you are the actual owner of that account.
Mm-hmm.
And most of them require a wet signature. So it's not something that can be emailed to you.
Oh.
It has to be mailed, so that actually have to see the ink signature.
So does age matter about getting your residency? Do you have to be retired? How's that work?
You do not have to be retired. There's two types of residency that you're applying for. One is temporary residency. It requires less financials. And then there's permanent residency. And most consulates, I'm going to say most because I don't know of any yet, that will issue to people who are not retired. So permanent residency, that's when age matters. You need to be retired to receive permanent residency. But I always like to say all roads lead to permanent. So if you start out with temporary, at the end of the first year, you're renewing for 3 more years. At the end of that 4th year, you're graduating on to permanent residency without ever showing financials again. Age does not matter at that point.
So Kim sent us the residency requirements, and so for 2025, we're going to show you those now. Here we go. The first thing is temporary residency. If you want to get temporary residency, the income requirement is $4,084 a month, and you have to prove that for 6 months. That's when the peso rate is 20.
20.
But if the peso goes down to 19 to 1, then it's $4,400 a month. So in order to get temporary residency, you have to have between $4,084 to $4,400 proven by bank statements for 6 months.
Right.
Or you can get temporary residency by having savings and investments that equal $69,750. This is US dollars, and that's for the peso rate being at 20,
Right.
or $73,500, and that's a peso rate of 19 pesos to one. But you have to prove it
For 12 months.
for 12 months, which is what you did. You went and got 12 months worth of paperwork,
I
right?
certainly did. And these numbers have certainly changed in the 2.5 years when we got our residency.
Yeah, they did. But then we have also is permanent residency. And as you will hear in just a few minutes, Kim told us that this is for retirees only. There's not necessarily an age, but you have to prove you are retired. She said most of the time people will use their social security letter to prove that they're retired. But in order to become a permanent resident, you still have to prove income. And so as a permanent, you need $6,806 if the peso rate's at 20, or $7,377 if the peso rate is 19 to 1. And you have to prove that it's 6 months worth. You had that in the bank for 6 months. Or savings and investments, $272,200 US if the peso rate's 20, or $293,500
For 12 months.
Yeah, you have to show that you've had that as investments for 12 months, and that's if the peso rate is 19 to 1.
Right.
So these are very important numbers because they're based on the minimum wage, and there's some kind of formula that they use, which is something that's beyond our pay grade.
Right.
But you could ask Kim that. But this is the rate for 2025, and this is January 2025. So of course, this will probably change as the next year comes, because every year it either goes up or down depending on
Right.
the peso and depending on the minimum wage of the people who work here in Mexico.
Yeah, and most people say get it done today because the future is uncertain.
That's right. And you do have to prove all of this, and you need to do it all correctly. So let's continue watching what Kim has to say, shall we? Okay, so this is great information about single people coming in. What does one need? But what about if we're married and we have different bank accounts, or we have matching bank accounts or joint bank accounts?
Right.
What does that look like? Are we both going to get permanent residency at that time?
Well, there's a lot of different moving parts in that statement. So just think of it as they want it to be an individual sport. They want to see each person have their own finances. The ultimate goal is, especially if you're going for permanent residencies, to have your own finances.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if they're joint accounts, that's when your marriage license comes into play.
Oh.
Your marriage certificate. So if they're joint accounts, then you have to prove that you're married to each other.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're in your home country, they shouldn't require it to be apostille. But if you're married from a different country, then you would need that apostille. So you can use the same finances as long as the amount for each person, the requirements is in there.
I know when we came in, we had joint accounts and we had separate accounts. So we had copies of everything and went to the consulate, and Michael had his appointment first one day, and he got his permanent residency. And then the next day I went in, and the gentleman asked me, where's Michael's information? And I said, well, I have my own. And he reached under the counter and brought out Michael's and said, we're just going to do it like this, and you're going to have temporary, and thank you, have a nice day. Didn't even look at my financials. And I was like, okay, I'll take what I get. Thank you.
Right? They hold all the power.
Yes, they do. And I knew that. So I didn't bother to say, but I have my own paperwork here.
Right. And can I do this individually?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost useless arguing with an agent at that point because they have their mind made up.
Right. I wouldn't.
Yeah. So you got to graciously take it, and you did.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, they don't all operate like that. They should have taken you as an individual because you were there with your own separate appointment.
Right.
However, it could be them that do things a certain way. That's why I say they all have the same rules, but they may interpret them differently and do things differently. A good rule of thumb is you're going to be able to do it on your own and get the status according to what your financials are. Now, if in a marriage, one person holds all of the money only in their name, one can sponsor the other.
And I think that's what happened here is they took it as he's now permanent and I got sponsored in as a temporary.
Right. And it's hard to tell within that visa.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to know those kind of things when we facilitate it so we can do the documents slightly different.
I see.
because now your husband will have to sign as well as you on your documents until you become permanent. But looking at the visa, we would never know that.
Oh, I see. Well, this is why we have a facilitator help us.
Thank
and
you.
We don't try to do it on our own because we've heard stories of people having to go back 2 and 3 and 4 times because they didn't have all their I's dotted and their T's crossed.
That is correct. They will take a look at your documents. They'll find a first mistake and send you on your way. You have no idea that you have more mistakes until you go back the next day. You can see it, the brightness in their eyes going, I'm back. I got it fixed. I'm ready to go. And then you see them walk out the door like this because they found another mistake further down in the documents. And you can go on to that until you get to the last document.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it's puts more stress on people than it's really worth.
Right.
I mean, you're getting here, you want to be successful and get on with your life.
And you get 30 days once
Mhm.
you're here.
Yes,
And those 30 days could go fast if you have to keep going back and forth.
they do. That's why we like to prepare before you even get here. We'll have the appointment in place. So within 3 or 4 days of you arriving,
Right.
we're going to get this done for you so you can enjoy the rest of your time.
That's a great idea.
There are other ways to become a resident, but you'll have to contact Kim and Dave if you have a unique situation.
Yes, because they're the ones with all the knowledge, and we know we'll probably get some comments
Oh,
that
yeah.
say, "Oh, I did it like this, and I did it like that," and congratulations. But we're just giving you the basics, and we're introducing you to our friends Kim and Dave, so that you can contact them and ask all of your questions. I then asked Kim if she had any examples of mistakes that people made or things that she could tell us to let you know to avoid so that you don't have problems once you get here in Mexico with your residency process. And this is what she had to say.
We've seen people arrive that are unprepared because they may have different information than they need based on some Facebook groups or even outdated information they received from the consulate. So they enter the country, sometimes not even correctly. So it's a very specific way to enter the country where you need to get that stamp directly on your visa for the conhe process to start.
Oh.
So if they don't do that correctly, then they must leave the country and come back. They don't have to start over. That activates your visa so you can use it for the conhe practice. So we've seen a lot of that with people just not showing up prepared. If we wanted to use our services, like I said, I like to prepare for them to be here, which requires a solid date of entry. People say, just tell me when my appointment is and I'll fly there. I said, no, it doesn't work that way because 9 times out of 10, you're going to find a cheaper flight the next day that you're supposed to be here. Then I have to cancel your appointment. That's frowned upon. We get penalized for that. The biggest thing that I have is people standing by their word of when they're going to get here. And it's not really standing by your word because things happen in life.
Right.
I just make it clear. I mean, it needs to be solid. Otherwise, when you get here, there may not be another appointment available.
And people can come through, like when they get their visa in the consulate, they have 6 months to get to Mexico, right?
180 days.
And then once they get here, though, they have 30 days.
Yes.
So they need to prepare a place to stay for probably how long?
Right now, like I said, it's always evolving. It used to take 8 to 10 weeks. We got it down to 2 to 4 weeks, and now it's done in just a single day.
Wow.
So we like to see people stay for 2 weeks because immigration always has its problems. The biometric machine can go down. The whole system could go down. Their card machine could break. I mean, just different equipment failures. I call them all equipment failures.
Right.
And if that delays the process, then we want to have a few day buffer in there so they're not stressed. We're not stressed. Under certain conditions, we're able to get them special permission to leave if they need to leave right away. But it's usually a death in the family or an immediate family member that is sick, and you have to prove it. So it's not as always easy as just going down there and asking. Okay. So we like people to be prepared for things like that because it makes their experience better.
Right.
And there's no stress.
But they can stay at a hotel or an Airbnb?
We used to be able to take hotel and resort addresses as a temporary address because most people coming in as a temporary resident, they haven't even found a place to live yet.
Right.
So we know that an Airbnb type condo, apartment, house, all of those are acceptable, just not resorts and hotels. So, and you can stay as little as a week or 2 weeks. We like to see 2. Right. We can generally get it done in 1 week. 5 business days though. We can't include the weekend in that.
This has been an amazing interview with great information, but I know there's lots of details. How do people contact you?
I would love to work with anybody who wants to work with me, even if we don't do the final procedure once you get here. We want to see everybody succeed. So the best way to contact me is email. I'm happy to take phone calls too. So our email is gringoforgringo@gmail.com.
Finally, we need to ask you, how
Well-
much do your services cost?
Our services, I mean, I'm just going to give a general idea, and we're right in there. General facilitator costs are between 5,000 and 8,000 pesos.
Per person?
So we land in there at 6,000 pesos per person.
6,000 pesos per person for the whole process once you get to Mexico?
Yeah, well, I mean that includes any consultation
Okay.
that I may give you. I mean, sometimes I work with people for a year before they even get here. So
Mhm.
as long as we can help them out get here, then that's better for us as well.
Sure. And that means they can call you and ask you for help, like which consulate do I go to? Or
Absolutely.
things like that, what the consulate might ask for, and they don't know what that means, they can ask you.
Right.
So Kim, thank you so much for letting us sit down with you today and ask you all these detailed questions, because we are not at all experts. People ask us in our comments for details, and we're now going to say, please contact Kim and Dave at Gringo for Gringo, and they will be happy to reach out and answer those questions.
Thank you for having me.
Well, this has been great.
It's been fantastic.
And we probably will see you. Do I need to see you one more time when I get my permanent?
Yes, because you two are on the 3-year path right now.
Well, he's permanent and
Well,
I'm not.
Yes.
Yes.
One more time for you.
One more time, I'll be back.
Yes.
That'll be fun.
Mhm.
So thank you again.
Thank you.
Well, that was a really interesting interview, wasn't it?
Yeah, and we're so grateful to Kim and Dave for the service they provided us. They made it so smooth, and they're so professional, and it was just easy to get our residency.
Well, it was a lot of work, but we didn't have to worry about getting the appointment or crossing our T's and dotting our I's. And so, yes, we are very thankful for them. And we're very thankful for you for being here. We have over 2,000 subscribers now. Yay!
Thank you very much.
Thanks
Appreciate
for
that.
being here. I want to shout out to Mary that we met out there, Anna Michael that we met also, and Aaron and Brad. We actually met them in person on the streets here in Puerto Vallarta, and that was super fun. So thanks again to all of you for being here. We'll see you in the next one.
Ciao.
Hasta luego.